Thank you so much for staying with us here on SABC News. And of course, we are coming to you live from Nasrec at the 55th National Conference of the African National Congress. We just had the president delivering his political report. And of course, it was quite tense in there. We also saw some moments of heckling, moments of disruption in song, and quite a lot of it, some saying that it reminds them of the past. It's more of the same of what we've seen in the past. And it's very critical then for us to go back in time and talk about the research and what it is showing us about where we are finding ourselves right now as the ANC, in fact, as a country where the ANC is concerned. Are there any policies that are benefiting people like you and I, the viewers, and really look at what the ANC is doing? Because they're hoping to attract more membership. They say they're hoping to attract more young people. But is this a political party, looking at where it comes from, where it is right now, that is able to attract this quality of cadre, as it calls them, that is hoping to attract in the coming years? Let's speak to Dr. Ronesh Doraj, who is the editor of news research here at the SABC, and of course a familiar face, our specialist, social media specialist, Stembiso Stole, is also joining us for this conversation. Remember, we've had so much happening throughout the day, very key moments that we need to look at and see what people like you are saying on social media. Thank you so much to you both for your time. Ronesh, I'm going to start with you. One of the things that is quite critical is that when you look at today, you cannot look at it without the context of the past. And for people like you and I, we are South Africans. We are looking to see how the policies are moving and what each political party is talking about. Let's scrutinize this particular one. A political report has just been tabled. Is it more of the same of what we've heard? Because a lot of it sounded very familiar.
Absolutely, Bongiwe. In fact, I was just joking with my colleagues at the SABC stand that this could possibly be a copy and paste document from past State of the Nation addresses, past Jan 8 statements, and then we even predicted he'll speak about Palestine, he'll speak about Israel, he'll speak about Cuba, Western Sahara, page 13, everything was there as is. But as the speech went towards the middle, we saw a more firm Cyril Ramaphosa as ANC president. He took a firm stand, he took a firm posture, saying, these things we will not allow in our name to happen. We saw what happened as President Ramaphosa started speaking just after 4 o'clock. As he was speaking, the theatrics of a former president just entering with bodyguards, and the entire hall broke out in cheers, and the president tried to calm everybody down. Then we had a very responsible kind of action from the KZN chairperson, Sponiso Duma, who's very responsible. He did it back in KZN when Ramaphosa was in KZN for the provincial conference. He did it here again with Gwede Mantashe, the ANC chairperson, and a few of the other NEC members, and they did manage to quell whatever was going to explode in that hall. And we saw guilty culprits were only few from the KZN delegation. Eventually, control was maintained, and the ANC president was allowed to speak and complete his 3-hour political report. But yes, more of the same, but towards the middle and towards the end, he says, no, these things cannot happen. South Africa is watching. We need to make a statement. We cannot embarrass ourselves. Lots of wrong things have happened in the ANC in the past. These things need to be corrected, and these decisions need to be rubber stamped at this very national conference.
And he talks about something that, Ronesh, you would have done extensive research on. This is the Auditor General's reports. And we've seen even the Auditor General decrying over time that so many reports are tabled, but very little action. Let's look at then, since he took over, have we seen a slight movement of some of the municipalities that have been problematic, them moving from out of the red into potentially green zones?
I think, Bongiwe, we have to be very honest with ourselves. The ANC is a very complex organization. Its membership, the last time I checked, was close to 1 million. The ANC has been around for 110 years. Now imagine yourself trying to manage a diverse organization such as the ANC. If you look at past Secretary General reports, that's your best kind of source to look for the problems, the kind of issues like gatekeeping, factionalism. The ANC President Ramaphosa even spoke about gatekeeping happening at branch level. They're trying to tackle it. It's part of the constitutional amendments. There are 23 constitutional amendments being proposed at this conference. Of those constitutional amendments, the top 5 deal with branch membership. there's no political education. They even brought up the very real example of when by-elections are being held, why do national officials, why do NEC officials have to actually go down at branch level, at ward level to do the campaigning, whereas that political activism has to be done by those ward leaders, people who eventually win those wards. Communities don't know who those ward people are. If I have a problem with my ward, with water, service delivery of any kind, there is that disjuncture. Even the Secretary General's report back in 2017, I think it was just after the policy conference in 2017, Gwede Mantashe tabled a diagnostic report, and part of that diagnostic report spoke to these issues about gatekeeping, factionalism, there's the social distance, there's a deficit of ethics, values. He also brought up this very potent term called political bankruptcy. People are after positions. They're joining the ANC to be an MPL, to possibly be a minister with those blue light vehicles and all the perks and the bells and whistles that come along with being in the ANC, towards the upper rungs of these very high profile positions. So this is nothing new. Yeah. But when the theatrics happened at today's conference earlier on, just after 4 o'clock, I was reminded very starkly of what happened in 2007 when we saw Masiwa Lokota, who was the chairperson back of the ANC then. Similar scenario played out. He was shouted down. The ANC President Thabo Mbeki was not allowed to speak. Eventually there was chanting and cheering and all sorts of things. And then you fast forward to 2022 and boom, exact same thing happening, just a different context.
Definitely difficult times, that the ANC finds itself in. And one thinks about that consultative conference that it would have had in 1969, calling for self-reflection. And I wonder if that kind of self-reflection is happening. So there's been a lot that has been happening throughout the day. And social media is also abuzz with all of this. Let's talk about this political report. Let's talk about the reception before we even go to what happened earlier on in the day.
No, definitely, Bongiwe, it's been a long day. We started our day here at the SABC by 5 o'clock, on different show, giving everyone rolling blackout. Rolling, coverage.
We did get
we did it. But rolling coverage, I meant there. And I think for me, when you look at everyone, in particular, when they were looking forward to the president, we'll reflect on Atikabela's tweet, who was just painting a picture of the president sitting with the with the deputy president, David Mabuza, in a lounge just ahead of this, political report. They were relaxed, and like my colleague Dr. Ronesh just indicated now, the mood changed. And the sentiment in between on social media before that, everyone was looking forward to the conference and for it to start on time, but unfortunately it didn't start at the expected time.
And that very picture there, as you talk about it, the two of them there.
Yeah.
I guess it was that moment when we were being told, and you were with Mam Sophie on this one, when the spokesperson said that the president is quite relaxed.
Relaxed, enjoying himself. You can see that he's having his bag, and you can tell there now we know what was in the bag is the political report. And then later on, Samgele Masego, he did that exclusive interview with the first to speak to Ace Makashule, who's suspended. We had to, of course, make sure that we speak to him out of this vicinity. And he spoke a lot. He said a lot. And one of the things, the notable quotes that he mentioned there was, I call upon the delegates not to accept anything that is anti-ANC, un-ANC. And basically just expressing his views about this, to simply saying, you need to remember what the ANC is all about, what the ANC stands for. Of course, in his own definition, he has his own way, given the political circumstances, and that's a sentiment that he had. And when you look at another notable quote that he mentioned there, simply saying delegates must not do what they did in 2017. They must vote for leaders with struggle credentials. And we know struggle credentials, the issue of credentials here within the conference, just looking into the people who are really eligible to come and vote here. But of course, in this context, he's expressing views about the credentials. He's saying you must have the struggle credentials and that they must vote for leaders that they trust and that will be able to take the movement forward. Bongi. Yeah.
And so what has been the sentiment, would you say, as you're reading the different views on social media?
The sentiment in response to that, the people have been harsh, as Makashule, simply saying the struggle credentials are not doing us anything. The struggle credentials brought us the Guptas. That's what they're expressing. As you can see on screen there, struggle credentials brought us the Guptas. I don't take ACE serious, And others seem to be saying this, they feel like Bongi, he's defying the party himself by being even outside addressing the media. Going to another one, they say, that's our problem. These struggle credentials being selected over competence, to simply saying, you talk about the struggle credentials when it suits you,
And it goes back to cadre deployment,
yes,
which is something that has been very, very huge.
Very huge, Bongi. And as we move into another one there, you can tell the sentiment is still the same, where people are just expressing themselves. They're saying, that's our problem, and focusing on the sentiment, in terms of the competence, questioning that, to say, we must look at the leadership and the service delivery in between. How are the struggle credentials in this generation going to help us move forward as a nation? We have been subjected far too long with these credentials. And that's the sentiment, Bongi. People basically saying, Ace, the credential issues, we're tired of your politics. We just want to focus on the conference and the outcomes in between.
And Dr. Ronesh, we think of Ace Magashule. I cannot help but think about that moment in Pietermaritzburg. It's a matter of 5 years, comrades. Do not be despondent. Maibuye ANC Esiazio. 5 years, things have taken a turn I don't think he was seeing.
5 years have eventually come, and the picture looks very, very different from when he made that comment up in Pietermaritzburg in KZN. Yeah, but I think obviously lots of politics happened this year. We saw what happened in June this year, 6 months before the conference. We had Arthur Fraser walk up to the Rosebank police station, open that charge against the sitting ANC President Ramaphosa, but obviously in his capacity as President of South Africa. And then just a day before the conference, we saw more politicking happening behind the scenes. We saw President Zuma and all the legal shenanigans happening. We saw people tweeting about what happened and what this means, whether Ramaphosa can actually stand for election at this conference. So I think this is just day one. 4 days more in this conference. Elections are happening over the next 2 to 3 days, so watch this space.
Do you think there's going to be a lot more coming out from those plenaries? Because when one looks at these amendments, and you think about, the president of the ANC, that is in his capacity there, President Cyril Ramaphosa, in the January 8th statement, saying that this is the year of the branches. We must focus on the branches. We must grow the branches. But it also looks like these branches, when you look at some of these amendments, top of mind for them is step aside.
Yeah, amazingly, Bongiwe, if you look at the 23 constitutional amendments, 3 of those constitutional amendments actually deal with the step-aside process.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, I think it's number 7, 11, 12, and 16, if I remember correctly. And I think at number 11, one of those deal with the affirmation or the oath that a person, before they join the ANC, and a whole 11 or 12 lines have been added. So that in itself will tell you just how serious the ANC is about cleaning itself and cleaning up the branches, from any kind of gatekeeping and factionalism. So they're being really serious to clean up the ANC. And I think if we go back to August 2020, when the ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa, he addressed branch members directly. He says the ANC stands as accused number 1. If you guys can't clean up house, you better leave the ANC. The ANC is not a place for you. And immediately what happens after
Former
that?
President Jacob Zuma releases his own letter.
Absolutely attacking Ramaphosa. He says, how dare you? You're a sitting ANC president. You cannot do this. Who are you? This has never happened in the history of the ANC. Please apologize. Fine, members of the ANC on the upper rungs of leadership may have made mistakes, may have benefited from contracts and SOEs, tampering and all those, state capture, those kind of things. But please don't pick on those ANC branch members who are, honest
innocent,
people,
as it calls
honest
them,
and innocent. So he took Cyril Ramaphosa, straight on, and since then he has not wasted any opportunity to actually attack the sitting ANC president. Just recently, he says, you have a president who's corrupt. You have a president who is possibly a CIA agent. He even says your president has committed treason. And he says it, without any doubt. He says, related to the Palapala incident. So obviously, lots and lots of politics happening in this very important year. But going back to what Ace said, obviously the picture has changed drastically from 2017.
Yeah.
And Stembi, so I often wonder if you sleep at all, because social media doesn't sleep. And I always ask myself, I wonder if you sleep. You can answer that off air.
Yeah.
But South Africans on Twitter always have something to say about what happens with various political parties, and in the context of the ANC and its conference right now, are they convinced that these policy directions that could be rubber stamped here, that some of them we may see, in governance somewhat, are they convinced that the ANC is in touch and really knows what's at the heart of what people need?
The sentiment there on social media, talking about Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, a lot of people are basically indicating that at the end of the day, think about us. At the SABC this week, we reflected on those stories. We spoke to the voters on the ground. Some people talking about potholes, talking about the issue of toilets, And the sentiment is basically simply the fights that you guys have, those are your fights, but put us first as a country. And don't only come to us when you need votes. We all know that we're going to the national elections 2024. And the sentiment is simply saying, we need you to go there, vote, choose the right leaders, but at the same time, whatever that you do, have our interest at heart. And I think for me, that's the sentiment of the day, to simply say, think of us. And you could see the trends will change. Now it's ANC conference, after the leadership that has been elected, you see different sentiment, different hashtags, people is simply saying, now what's the way forward?
And interesting, it's a lot of young people, and the president today in his address saying that they want to get more young people into the ANC, and not just any young people, but quality young people.
Definitely, and that also, when you look into the sentiments that were made by Ronald Lamola in the build-up to this, to saying there should be a generational mix, so that when you have young leaders, you are actually giving them the opportunity to the young people who would be able to actually be able to speak on their behalf. But don't forget, once again, the international news editor, Mamso, had an interview with Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, who also said the same thing, that there should be that generational mix of young people. She raised concerns about the ANC Youth League not being active in between. So the narrative now is out with the old ones and hello with the new ones.
Oh, so out with the old, in with the new. Thank you so much to you both. And we ended off on that note. Thank you to you both. And I know we stuck together. You stuck with me during the course of the coming days as we take you back in time and also reflect on the current times, what everybody is talking about on social media. That is Dr. Ranesh Doraj, editor here at SABC of News Research. Very key department, I tell you, to paint a picture for us of where we were and where we are. And always the finger on the pulse when it comes to social media. He's a social media specialist here on the SABC News. Now, if you've missed some of the moments that took place earlier on between former presidents and current presidents, you may want to watch this next video as we end off with the video of former President Jacob Zuma and current President Cyril Ramaphosa.
Oh yes, I'm growing young. You guys are growing old and big.